What's poppin', y'all? Today I want to talk about Lyrical Lemonade, in particular, how much I enjoy what they've been doing recently with Cole Bennett as a whole. If you guys remember Lyrical Lemonade from 2016, 17, it felt like there was a wave, and it always felt like it was a taste profile. Even up until now, largely what you see on Lyrical Lemonade is representative of Cole Bennett, from the branding, from the artists he chooses, and that felt like it continued for a while, and then it got so mainstream in terms of the mainstream attention that people wanted to get on Lyrical Lemonade that it felt like they were kind of losing their identity a bit, at least from the outside looking in. Now, one of the main points I wanted to make is that Lyrical Lemonade has always been known as the bridge, I would say. So it's pre-Lyrical Lemonade, post-Lyrical Lemonade. A lot of the time they were finding artists very early on. For example, Juice WRLD got linked up to Cole Bennett through Lil Bibby, and then that connection got him on Lyrical Lemonade, and then he was out of here after that. Lil Mosey is one of the artists that Lyrical Lemonade picked up really early, one of the SoundCloud artists that went crazy on there. Also Lil Skies, of course. Lil Tecca as well, The Kid Laroi, Jack Harlow. However, it felt like it got to a point when certain artists, you're like, whoa, either they missed the wave or they didn't feel like they really belong. Like, for example, Polo G and Lil Durk didn't embody the sound and the wave that Lyrical Lemonade had at the time. However, I do believe they're a taste profile of what Cole Bennett probably enjoys listening to. They're both Chicago artists. Famous Dex was one of the first big looks that Cole Bennett was able to get. So it only makes sense that he would show love to Chicago, and they were big artists too. But this is more of where Lyrical Lemonade started going mainstream. We had the NLE Choppa music video that he did. That was like Shot of Flow 5, and he was already big at that time. NBA Youngboy, this was like several years ago. Blueface, it wasn't even the really big Blueface song. Mulatto kind of didn't make sense. That was another music video where people were like, oh, whoa, that looks odd. Then he had Danielle, which at this point I believe that was a taste profile from Cole Bennett, and he just wanted to give it a look. But when we saw 24K Golden, Coco with DaBaby, you're looking at that like, whoa, this doesn't feel representative of the brand. SSG Kobe, it made sense. It felt like he was tapping into a new underground wave, and that's something I feel like was lost, not for Lyrical Lemonade, but for the whole scene in general, in terms of media, whether it was No Jumper, whether it was, Lyrical Lemonade, or whoever else covers these types of people. So then he had SSG Kobe, he had Snot. These were artists that were kind of taking off. The Snot song was with Lil Skies. I'm talking about Whipsky in particular. And then Sofego, Knock Knock. But with Knock Knock, it already felt like this song had taken off and run its course. Now, granted, the music video did very well, but even Sofego fans were surprised that that was the music video they chose to push. Then he would always throw in his own artists that he liked. Like, for example, DCG Shun and B-Sav, the song House Party. Those are two artists that still the majority of us don't know. Lil Tecca became Stamped. He's pretty much kind of like a Lyrical Lemonade graduate. But then we would see like Nardo Wick. Nardo Wick, that Who Wants Smoke song, that song was already popping. And it felt like they were like, okay, let's amplify this, and we'll use Lyrical Lemonade to amplify that. And that's something that I feel like wasn't necessarily aligned with the brand. Outside looking in, of course. Lil Yachty, it made sense. Glaive, hyperpop was kind of taking off. I really don't know what's going on with that scene right now. Machine Gun Kelly is one that a lot of people raise their eyebrow at, like, oh, what's going on? And this isn't to knock Cole Bennett, because moves like this, they're probably big money moves, and he's a director, and maybe he liked to direct for this artist, but it doesn't necessarily fit what people believe the brand to be, and that's a difficult thing when you're running something this big. Ski Mask, he would always do videos with him. He's kind of just stamped in there. Oliver Tree was a little bit odd, but I thought it was cool, because Oliver Tree, he was relatively big. One of the main things that people had as a criticism was, where are the artists that Lyrical Lemonade is putting on? And this is something that I've talked about before, but I'll state it here because it's a specific Lyrical Lemonade video. There is no longer a platform, a person, an artist, an entity that can single-handedly put somebody on. That is long since gone. I mean, just look at Chloe Bailey. She sold like, 10K first week. She's been co-signed by Beyonce, probably one of the biggest co-signs you can get. And that's not enough to get people to care. So this is completely out of the control of putting somebody on. But if you're saying tapping in and catching something before it goes crazy, I think Lyrical Lemonade started to do that again with Yeet. Now, Yeet already had that, whatever that Bell song was, that already took off on its own a little bit, but he decided to embrace Yeet. So he did a couple music videos with Yeet. That went great. Then he did a couple with Justin Bieber, which I guess people could say that's mainstream, and it's not as much of a risk, but I think Yeet was a slight risk. Then another big deal was Babytron. So Babytron has had a strong fan base for a while because he's one of those artists that his numbers didn't reflect it at the time. I think he had maybe like 200 to 300,000 monthly listeners, but I was hearing everybody talk about him online. People were talking about him in my comment section. People were talking about him on Twitter whenever I got on there. And that, I feel like, is a more important metric than numbers because there were artists and there are rappers with several million monthly listeners, or at least 1 to 2 million, that are never really talked about. So I know they're not hot. Their numbers are just up. So Babytron, I was like, okay, this is tapping into something new because Lyrical Lemonade had been known, especially 2017, 18, SoundCloud rap, which I don't think is representative of them. And then you got Babytron, who's spitting bars, but it's in this new style. He's got his own sauce. Some of the music, it's hard to get into at first, but he's got his own cult-like fan base. I thought that was a good look, too. So you got Yeet, you got Babytron. Then he did something with Dot the Genius. That was like Kid Cudi, Denzel Curry, and Jid. I think that was one of the more like business type of related deals. Then there was the Minions movie with Yeet. I thought that was a huge look. That is Lyrical Lemonade brand to its core. Like you could see Lyrical Lemonade, Cole Bennett, he clearly probably loves the Minions. I mean, it's like a nice animated movie. He's integrating Yeet, who's an artist that he worked with closely, to make a song for that. It's an animated movie. Lyrical Lemonade's brand is animated. That's a super solid move for a big commercial look. Now, another risk that people might say it wasn't a risk looking back is Central C, the Doja song. Now, that song was taking off on TikTok. It was very big, but to put a UK artist, is this the first UK artist that he's ever put on Lyrical Lemonade on an American platform? That's not something to scoff at. It is a risk to take with your brand, and it worked out phenomenally. It's at like 100+ million views. Then again, there was the Nardo Wick song with the Kid Laroi. Kid Laroi is a Lyrical Lemonade artist, but Nardo Wick, I don't know, it just feels like a lot of what goes on with him is forced. I would say this made sense though. Lucky, the Coincidence music video, Lucky is just a staple. He's one of the earliest interviews that they ever did. However, he's also he's Chicago, and he's part of the new class, I guess you could say, of people that had a resurgence or are blowing up right now. Then you've had Yeet music videos, ESTG and Jack Harlow. ESTG fell out of place. I'm not going to lie. Jack Harlow, I feel like, is what made it make sense for Lyrical Lemonade. Then there was Blink 182, which you kind of got to just give credit for as a whole because it's nostalgia. They've released new music. He probably listened to them growing up. I listened to them growing up. Lil Yachty Poland, I think that was a great move. Lil Yachty's had a resurgence and is continuing to have a resurgence, which also ties into the Strike music video that he recorded for Lil Yachty and dropped on there too. Then you've got Trippie Redd and Lil B. Trippie Redd is pretty much a staple. I think Love Scars 2 was the first song I ever heard on Lyrical Lemonade. He threw Lil B on there too, which I think is a cool look. That's probably Lil B's first time on Lyrical Lemonade. But then you've got the Jack Black Peaches song from the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Animated movies and Lyrical Lemonade just go hand in hand. Jack Black is also nostalgia. I was about to say Camp Rock. School of Rock. Come on now. That's a different generation. But then you've got this other guy that he throws on there, BLP Kosher and Babytron. I had never heard of this BLP Kosher guy. And I was like, what the hell is this? So I check it out. It's hard. I'm probably going to talk about the guy on a separate occasion. But Babytron is kind of like part of Lyrical Lemonade's new class. Now, if I had to put it together, PLP Kosher is obviously the majority of people's first introduction to him through a Lyrical Lemonade video, and it is a risk. Throwing somebody like this can get pushback, but it's a risk I like to see him take. And I think instead of finding themselves within a class, Lyrical Lemonade's kind of trying to create a new class, because if you look at it, Lil Yachty's having a career resurgence. So we can't really lump him in with the class before, because we can't throw him in with 21 Savage and Kodak because they've eclipsed him by far and large. The majority of 2016 classes passed Lil Yachty. Some people are going to say, well, 21 was on the album, but Yachty worked with Drake on the album too. We're talking strictly solo career from the people that did take off. So Lil Uzi Vert far beyond eclipsed Lil Yachty. Same thing with Kodak, same thing with 21 Savage. Lil Dicky kind of just left the music as a whole. But out of that 5 or so, Lil Yachty's a bit behind, mainstream-wise, success-wise, as a solo act. Not to take anything away from him. So he's having a resurgence. So it's like, okay, we have Lil Yachty, we have Yeet, we have Babytron, we have Central C, kind of. And I feel like that's a solid start to where music is kind of headed in this direction today. Rap music, at least. Because B.O.P. Kosher, Babytron, they're lyrical rappers. Lil Yachty, he's mixing and matching stuff. Yeet, he's got his own wave. Lucky, of course. And I'm also throwing in Jack Harlow because Jack Harlow is Lyrical Lemonade class. But he's a couple of years ago, so it's difficult to throw him in there. It feels like Cole Bennett is having more fun, especially frequency. That's something we saw that was lacking. A couple of years ago, it felt like the frequency of music videos was becoming less and less. He did the Eminem video, which was a huge look. I don't think anybody can even really hate on that. And I like to see that he's taking songs from people like Yachty,